656. Kedoshim to you, ki kadoshoni, Hashem lakecha. You shall be holy, because I am holy, Hashem your God. Alright, so Kedoshim to you, be holy. So, what does that mean? Someone says, be holy. How do you become holy? Grow a long beard? How do you become holy? You fast for 40 days? When it says, be holy, what does that mean? So first of all, it's not even clear whether this verse, this is a tzivui, it's a commandment, or it's a statement of destiny. Kedoshim could either mean, you shall become holy, so it's a commandment, or it's saying, you will be holy, whether you like it or not. Meaning, it's the destiny of the Jewish people to be holy. So it's either a commandment, you should become holy, and then we have to figure out how one becomes holy, or it's a prediction. Hashem tells the Jewish people that we are a nation of destiny for holiness. And the reason why it's important to know that is because when you run away from your destiny, when you run away from who you're supposed to be, so then of course there's a discomfort. In other words, if you're designed a certain way, if you just, let's say you're a 8-cylinder car. The old days had 8-cylinder cars. Now they 4-cylinder, 6, right? 8-cylinder car, and only 6 are working. So the car will go, but it's not going to be the same smooth ride, because you're not really running on what you're designed to run. If a person is designed for holiness and he doesn't live his life that way, so it's not going to be such a smooth ride. And he may not even understand why life is so bumpy. He doesn't realize because he's ignoring the fact that he was wired to be holy and isn't acting in a holy way. So either Kedosh to you is a prediction, you shall become holy whether you like it or not, or Kedosh to you is a commandment that you should become holy. Now, how do you become holy? So, you can think holiness is all sorts of things. There was a story about a chassid that had read that in the books of Kabbalah, it says if you don't speak for 40 days and 40 nights, you can get Ruach HaKodesh, you can get like divine inspiration. So he was determined to get divine inspiration. He figured he'll be quiet for 40 days and 40 nights. It's not an easy thing to do, but you get quiet after 40 days, 40 nights, nothing happened. Doesn't feel Ruach HaKodesh, doesn't even feel holy. So he's very disappointed. So he goes to the Rebbe. I think it was the Apter Rav actually. He went to the Apter Rav. And he said, Rebbe, I don't stand. I didn't speak 40 days, 40 nights. Nothing going on. I don't feel holy. I don't have Ruach HaKodesh, certainly. The Rebbe said, come with me. So they take a walk down the block, a field. The Rebbe takes him past a field to a barn. They go into a barn, there's a horse. And the Rebbe goes over to the horse and goes, holy horse, holy horse. So the chassid like, what? He said, look, this horse hasn't spoken more than 40 days and 40 nights, right? Okay, so he should be really holy, right? Of course, it's silly, right? The horse doesn't become holy because it didn't speak. His point was, there's no gimmicks, there's no tricks to become holy, right? You can't just say, let me do this and this, let me sprinkle water on myself, let me do this, I'm holy. That doesn't make sense. So what is holiness? So Rashi says, Prushim and Arayis. Holiness is defined actually as the ability to be able to be careful when it comes to relationships with people. When I say relationship with members of the opposite sex, you have to be careful. Prushim and Arayis. Now you think holiness, you can think of so many other ideas that you come to mind. You think of holy, praying in a very holy way, right? All different things. Studying Torah, Prushim and Arayis, staying away from Arayis. That's holiness. It's interesting, by the way. It's not a coincidence. On Yom Kippur, what do we read by Mincha? We read about Arayis. On the holiest day of the year, we read what we can't do, right? So what does Rashi mean? That's the way. The key to holiness is Prushim and Arayis. That stay away from. Well, you do see that Rashi is telling us that some people don't understand that really it is a limitation that a person who's involved in things that are inappropriate and immoral, it does take away from his ability to tap into holiness. That Rashi is telling us that the definition of holiness, or the opposite of holiness, is when you really are given to your type, giving to desires, and the opposite of that is called holiness. But let's see the Ramban, and we'll see how they really go hand in hand. The Ramban says something else. The Ramban says, "Kadesh atzmecha b'mutalach." Holiness means when you exercise self-discipline, even in those areas that are permitted to you. Kadesh atzmach b'mutalach. Make yourself holy and discipline yourself even in those areas that are permissible. Technically speaking, there's certain things might be okay for you to do, and when you exercise restraint, that's called holiness. For instance, the Torah says you can't eat pig. The Torah doesn't say you can't eat like a pig, right? You can stuff your face all you want, right? But holiness is when you exercise that restraint. So even though in Torah you could eat, stuff your face, but if you exercise restraint, that's called holiness. Why is that called holiness? When you exercise restraint, what does that mean? So we really got to have a deeper explanation of of what holiness is. But understanding, Rashi's telling us, and even the Ramban, on the same page, what they're saying is when you indulge or overindulge, that's the opposite of holiness. Now, they tell a story about this fellow that his wife was making schmaltz. You know what schmaltz is, guys? You know what schmaltz is?
Chicken.
Yeah, schmaltz is what?
Chicken renderings.
It's the most unhealthy food on the planet. It doesn't get it's pure fat, and then you fry it in oil. I remember my father remembers like you spread it on everything, on your bread, on the butter, on your potato rather. It's like it's a heart attack.
I grew up eating
Schmaltz. It's a heart attack.
You buy jars of
That's
it
it.
in the butcher's store.
Right, exactly.
Bring it home and
that's it.
use
Schmaltz. So it's
Like a lard.
huh? Yeah. It's a heart attack waiting to happen. It's horrible stuff. I mean, but people, right? So his wife was making schmaltz, so he wanted some. She said, no, I'm making it for Pesach. You got to hold off till Pesach. Anyway, she steps out of the house. So what does he do? He's gonna take some schmaltz. Goes to the cupboard, puts some schmaltz in his chicken soup. That makes the chicken soup. But really, she comes home. She sees something fidgeting with the. She said, "Did you take schmaltz from this drawer, from this cabinet?" He goes, "Yeah, it's just a little bit. I know you don't want, but a little bit to taste it." She goes, "You don't understand. That wasn't the schmaltz. That was the butter." So he put butter in his chicken soup. He fainted, because he had milk and meat, or chicken and milk rather. And he was just so beside himself. He runs to the rabbi, and he's crying. Rabbi, what should I do? This. He said, Rabbi, one second. The fact that you ate the schmaltz, the butter in your chicken soup, number one, you did it by accident. Number two, you're crying your head off. That's the biggest proof you're doing tshuva, right? If you feel remorseful, that's tshuva. I'm not worried about that. What I'm really worried about is, you had such a great chicken soup. Why do you have to put schmaltz in it too? Right? Why do you have to overindulge? That's my problem. All right? But what's wrong with overindulging? What does that mean? So, understand that if I tell you, a person that can't see, so his hearing gets better, right? It's not really true his hearing gets better. Hearing doesn't improve. But when you're seeing, so you're not focusing on the sound, and your ears are being distracted by your sight. When you can't see, then all you have is the ears, so you're much more sensitive and aware of what the ear is listening to. So it's not that your hearing actually gets better, but the sight that distracted from your hearing, because your sight is also telling you to look at things, so you're not really hearing as well. Okay. In the same sense, it works the same with spirituality too, meaning that there's a spiritual world that exists in this world, but we can't see it when we're distracted by the physical world. It's kind of like, let's say I tell you, we go outside in the middle of the night at an open field. We have our lanterns, because it's dark outside. I say, guys, when we shut these lanterns down, you'll see the most brilliant stars out there. And it'll be so light you won't need lanterns. So let's shut the lanterns off. So there's a moment of hesitancy, because right now you don't see the stars. So I'm asking you to shut down the lanterns, plunge yourself in darkness, and then you see the stars. But right now you don't see the stars. So it's a really difficult thing to do. There's an element of trust here that when you give this up, you'll see some of the effort. In the same thing with the spiritual world. There's a spiritual world out there. If you just gave up and overindulging, and I'll explain why in a second, you'd see a much more spiritual world. But it's challenging because I'm telling you to give it up before you can actually see the spiritual world. You follow what I'm saying? So the overindulging blocks from seeing a spiritual world. And I'm telling you, if you stop overindulging, you'll see a spiritual world. But like the guy that is hesitant to shut down the lantern until he sees the stars, people are reluctant to give up the physicality until they see the spirituality right in front of their nose. So spirituality is right there. But the overindulgence pulls us away from that spiritual world. It's kind of like when you, a rocket ship, it takes a lot of energy and fuel, or whatever you call it, to pull it out of the Earth's gravitational pull. But once you get it out of the gravitational pull, it's smooth sailing. The physical world has a great gravitational pull. And the more that you overindulge, the more you're langishly pulled into this world. So there's a certain effort in the beginning to pull out of that gravitational pull. But once you pull yourself out of it, because you release yourself from being stuck in the physical world, there's almost a smooth ride up in the spiritual world. But it takes a little bit of guts on your part to say, I'm willing to give up the overindulging or the physicality and push myself and pull myself out of the gravitational pull of the physical world. But once I do that, I'm the spiritual world's orbit. So it's right here in front of us. So Kedoshim to you is in this world. Kedoshim to you is not about a spiritual world that exists beyond this world. It's in this world itself. So what does that mean? And you just have to pull away from the gravitational pull of the physical world. So what is that? So we're going to come back to this. I want to go to a very famous pasuk we've mentioned many times. You've heard a billion times.
Rabbi, one question, please.
Yes.
What is that attribute when it says ki?
What?
The attribute that says ki kadosh ani.
Oh,
I mean, what is it
Good.
it about
All right.
God?
So
That what does he do? I mean,
okay,
what
so
is
actually,
it?
good point. I'll raise the question now. I was going to come back to it later, but let's do it now. The Medrash says like this: Hashem says, "Be holy, ki kadosh ani," because I am holy. So the Medrash says, "Yachal kamoni." You might think Hashem says that you could be as holy as me. No, kadosh ani, I'm still holier than you. Very strange, right? That famous, I'm holy, the holier than thou card. God is playing the holier than thou card. You think you're holy? I'm still holier than you. What's God trying to say over here? What does that mean? You're holy, but you might think you could be as holy as me. Really? Do I think I could be as holy as God? And God says, no, don't make that mistake. You can't be as holy as me. Why would I make that mistake? And number two is, what's God trying to rub it in by saying, I'm still holier than you? What does he mean by that? Okay, so I'm going to answer your question. We'll answer that question too. So let's go to page 660, 661. All right? Famous pasuk, Lo sikam, the last pasuk, Yeches. Lo sikam velo sitar, as b'nei hamecha. You should not seek revenge or bear a grudge against the members of your nation. V'haftarei kamocha, you should love your fellows, you love yourself. Ani Hashem, I am Hashem. Famous pasuk, v'haftarei kamocha. Right? Ever got that? Yes? You see it? Yitches.
18.
660, you got it? The last pasuk, Yeches, you got it? 18, yeah? Lo sika v'lo sitar, you got it? Lo sika v'lo sitar, do not take revenge, do not bear a grudge. V'haftarei kamocha ani Hashem. So, a few things. Right, you got it? So, a few things. First of all, why do you need the introduction of lo sikam v'lo sitar? I mean, it's a good mitzvah. Don't take revenge. Don't bear a grudge. But why is that the introduction to v'haftarei kamocha? Number two, what does it mean v'haftarei kamocha? To love your fellow like you love yourself. What's wrong with just saying v'haftarei love your fellow? What's kamocha adding? Obviously, we know the simple answer. And why does the pasuk end with the words ani Hashem? I am Hashem. So, let's talk for a second. So what's love? All right, so everyone knows, everyone has love. We have this kind of magical, sense of what love's all about. Especially in America, you have this Cupid. You know what Cupid is? Cupid is the angel that pulls the arrow and he shoots you, right? It's based on Greek mythology. He hits you, all of a sudden you fall in love, right? And falling in love actually is not even a choice. You fell in love, right? You didn't even choose love. And if you're married, you better pray that Cupid doesn't hit you again, because then you're really in trouble, right? It does make sense, right? So the truth is that, let's say I come home from work, and my kids are fighting and screaming, and my son says to me, he has a real fight with his sister. He goes, I hate my sister. So I'll say, you can't do that. No, I really do. No, you're supposed to love your sister. Most of us don't think of it this way, but love actually is an obligation. You sound like it was, no, love is something you fall into, an obligation. There's an obligation called love. You're supposed to love your sister. What does that mean? What does it mean you're supposed to love your sister? And we have that expectation. A parent has that expectation that a sibling will love a sibling. How does that work? Why should that be? So the definition of love that we're going to talk about today is a little differently. And that is, it's the emotional pleasure. Love is the emotional pleasure that a person experiences when they focus on the virtue of another person. Again, it's the emotional pleasure that you experience when you're able to focus on the positive or on the virtues of another individual. A parent can always see the positive virtue of a child. And that's why parents are always able to love a child. And the expectation is that you should love somebody or love your sibling is by focusing on their virtues. You take your kid someplace and he's running all over the place, and somebody else is going, Vilda Chaya, what a wild kid, right? And you're feeling, what a cute child they have, right? Because you focus on the virtue of that child. Every parent tries to see the virtue of that child. It doesn't mean that you don't see the criticism, and we'll see in a second what that means as well. But love is the ability to focus on that virtue. If that's the case, lo sikam velo sitar is an introduction. If you want to focus on the virtue, then you have to strip away the negatives first. You can't think negatively about the person. Don't think about revenge. Don't think about bearing a grudge. These are the exercises that first you got to remove any dislike you have for that person. Don't be thinking revenge. Don't be thinking grudge. Once you pull that away, you're able to focus on the virtue. Lecha kamocha. Now, what does it mean, kamocha? It means just like we have no problem focusing on our own virtues, right? We always see our own virtues, right? After kamocha means the same thing. If I tell you, I would like to think that a sibling won't want to take, in most cases, unless it's a very unhealthy relationship, a sibling, no matter how upset they are with another sibling, is not going to take revenge on a sibling. A brother's not going to, you know why? Because you feel like you're hurting yourself. That's your family. That's who you are, right? To the extent that you see somebody as an extension of yourself, like the famous Yerushalmi says, when somebody's cutting a piece of meat, and his hand slips, and now the knife cuts the left hand. You think the left hand's going to grab the knife and whack the right hand back because the right hand cut the left hand? Of course not. It's absurd. Because the left hand, your left hand and right hand are part of the same body. So in the same way, you're not going to take revenge against a sibling because you feel that that's part of you. So we're going to expand that in a few moments as well. But V'ahavta kamocha is the ability to focus on the virtue of another person. Now, where does it lead us to holiness? It happens to be, by the way, Kedoshim to you is a parsha that has many, many mitzvahs in it. You guys not have many, but a good chunk, I think even the majority of the mitzvahs are bein adam chavero. It's a small parsha, but a lot of mitzvahs. But most of the mitzvahs in this parsha are bein adam chavero, between man and fellow man. And yet the topic, or the parsha, is called holiness. So you see somehow that the laws that govern man and man, man and fellow man, are under the category of holiness. What does holiness have to do with the laws that govern each other? Do not steal. Why is that about holiness, right? So it is like this, that holiness, we'll see, the definition of holiness is the ability to get beyond yourself. When you're stuck on yourself, then you're living in a very physical world. When you're able to get past yourself, to realize something beyond yourself, that actually is the definition of holiness. Holiness is the ability to see beyond yourself. So, when you're overindulging, it's just the opposite. When you're overindulging, you're absorbed with yourself. Arayis is absorbed. Arayis is all about your self-pleasure. So, Rashi is telling us, the Ramban is telling us, holiness is the ability to get beyond yourself. Don't be self-absorbed. Don't overindulge. Don't think about Arayis or get indulged in Arayis. It's the opposite. Now here's where Hashem comes in. It's like this. If selflessness is what holiness is all about, so God says, Yachol kamoni. You might think that you could be as, not just holy as me, as selfless as me. And God says, you're making a mistake. You can't be as selfless as me. Meaning, not that God's trying to rub it in and say, I'm still better than you, but He's telling us, as a human being, see, God has no needs for himself. He has no selfish motives whatsoever. God is totally selfless. So we might think, if you want to emulate God, we should try to be totally selfless too. So God says you can't do that. A human being has to take care of himself. You can't ignore yourself. So Yachol Kamoni, you might think that you should be as holy as me and totally ignore yourself. You can't do that. Everyone is created with self-preservation instincts. You have a self. You have to develop yourself. You can't ignore yourself or negate the self. So then we run into the problem. Well, if God's really telling us that we have a self, and yet holiness is about being selfless, so how do you reconcile the two, or how do you balance the two? God's telling us you can't be totally selfless. The thing God's telling us that holiness is about being selfless. So what does that mean? I try to have a self, try to be selfless at the same time. How do you? So Rav Shimon Shkop says a beautiful thing. Rav Shimon Shkop says like this, that the real kunz, if I can use the word, the real trick, so to speak, is that not to negate yourself, because you have a self, but to expand yourself. Meaning, holiness is If I just think about myself, that's not holiness. But if I include you in me, which means that your pain is my pain, your joy is my joy. If I really feel that you're part of me, so what did I do? I didn't negate the self, but I expanded myself to include others in my definition of self. That's how you balance both. You get beyond yourself, but you don't negate yourself. You don't get rid of yourself, you extend yourself, you expand yourself. So that just like your wife becomes part of who you are, and your children are part of who you are, well, you expand that to include your friends and whoever else you want to include in that. But that's how you don't negate the self, but you expand the self. And so both are true. So God says, you might think you'd be like me and you could be selfless totally. Can't do that. Human being can't be selfless. You can't negate that self. What you can do is the opposite. Expand yourself. So holiness is the ability to expand oneself. So that's what Rashi tells us. Don't overindulge. Ramban says don't overindulge. Rashi says not arayas, because the idea of holiness is to get beyond yourself, and overindulging is about self-obsession. Arayas, self-pleasures. It's all about the self. And the challenge is to get to v'haftarech kamocha, in which case somebody else becomes part of you. V'haftarecha kamocha. You love him like yourself. You know why? Because he is yourself. That's exactly the point.
There's one step before that, though.
Yeah.
And that is you have to be completely comfortable with yourself
Of course.
before you can do that.
Well, of course.
That's
right.
a very rare quality in most of us.
Yeah, v'haftarech kamocha means you have to love yourself first. That's true. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. So v'haftarech kamocha means love your fellow like yourself, meaning see that person as part of who you are. So Ramban, everyone has that problem. What does it mean you should love somebody? How can you love someone like yourself? What does that mean? So, first of all, is it even possible to love someone like you love yourself? And the Ramban, therefore, has a whole different idea. Ramban says it means that you should want for him as much as you want for yourself. Because most people say this, listen, I don't mind.
Not as much.
What?
Not as much.
But he's saying you should want for him as much as you want for yourself.
As much?
As much.
But I thought the proper consideration was that you should want for other people as you want them to produce for you. So if you don't want them to hit you, don't hit them. If you don't want them to mislead you, don't mislead them. If you don't want them to steal from you, don't steal from them.
That's certainly
If
true.
you don't want them to hit you, if you don't want them to hate you, don't hate them. And that's why it says at the beginning, lo titor, lo tikum, lo titor. Don't do these things because that's the expectation from other people. That is what your expectation is, that it would not happen to you, then don't do it to other people.
That's
That has
true.
nothing to do with love, because a human being cannot love any. How can anybody expect for me to love somebody in Australia whom I don't even know?
So it's that,
Right?
right.
I can't do that. Nobody can expect that. So the word of love, I think, is a mistranslation. The ahava does not necessarily mean just love. It has other meanings also. That you should expect, you should want, you should try to produce the same thing with good heart for other people rather than just loving.
I think that's included in it. I don't think that's the only thing. That's a subcategory. Meaning, I'll give you an example. So, let's talk to Ramban a second. The Ramban says that it's human nature that you don't mind if your friend builds himself a beautiful house with 8 bedrooms and 3 garages, all great. As long as you have a house with 10 bedrooms and 4 garages, right? That's human nature. That you want for him, but you want more for yourself. V'haftarech kamocha means you should be as happy for him if he has as much as you. That's what Ramban learns. Because he doesn't learn it means you literally love that person like yourself. Because what does that mean? Does that mean tomorrow morning I'm going to run to your house and brush your teeth because I have to love you like I love myself? It doesn't make sense. So Ramban says what it means is that you should want for that person as much as you want for yourself. And that's really what you're saying. All right? But I'm saying a little more than that now. That v'haftarech kamocha means you should love someone like yourself. Meaning, you should love someone because they are part of yourself, like yourself, literally. That you expand
What
yourself.
if somebody hates himself?
Then we said that you can't do it.
Then it just
right.
doesn't make sense to say you should love like you're loving yourself.
You can't.
The person doesn't love himself.
Then you have a problem. Then if a person doesn't love himself,
That's
he's gonna have a
the
problem.
antithesis of what we said. I think, and there are a lot of rabbis who have written about this, that it has nothing to do with loving anybody. You don't have to love anybody. There is nothing in the Torah that says you must. What is greater than loving your parents? It doesn't say love your parents. It says kabed et avicha v'et imecha. Why doesn't it say love your parents? Because love doesn't mean anything. You have to have
But
some
here it
sort
says
of
love, but here it says
good
love.
relationship. Well, that's what I'm saying. The word ahava doesn't necessarily mean love, but it means you should is a mode of expectation that whatever you want for yourself, you shall not do to others as you don't want them to do to you, and you don't want them to do to you. That's basically what it means. Don't kill them if you don't want them to come and kill you. Don't kill their daughters. Don't go and take their wives,
Okay, but
like
right,
ISIS does, if you don't want them to do to you.
But that definition, right? That definition has zero to do with love. That's really loving yourself.
Why?
Because you really
What
don't.
does that have to do
It
with
means.
loving yourself?
I'll give you an example. There was somebody came to a rabbi and said he just joined a very special group. What's that group? That group is that they all committed that if anyone has a problem or gets in trouble with something, they're going to come to their rescue. With the understanding that if they get in trouble, they'll come to their rescue. So the rabbi said, this has nothing to do with love. It's all about yourself. You're only helping him because you want him to help you. This has nothing to do with him, right? You're entering this group because you want somebody to help you. So you're helping them so they can help you. That's not a love thing. It's a totally selfish thing. I'm not saying it's an evil thing, but I'm saying that's not love.
That's part of Kedusha. It has nothing with love.
Okay, so we're talking about love here. It says we're taking the words that means love. So the Ramban is saying what that means. It means that you want for him, and you want for him means that you should care about him as much as you care about yourself.
Well, that's true.
That's what he said. All right. So that is okay. So Kedoshim to you means be holy. Rashi says holiness means Purushim Arayis. Ramban says Kashrut Mutalach. But both the Tzara Shava, the common denominator is it's about when if you're not stuck on yourself, and then you're able to pull yourself out of that gravitational pull, that's selfishness, and kind of move past that. That's when you experience the loftiness of holiness. And holiness is really is an idea of being selfless. But God still says, be careful. Don't think that you can be selfless like me, because you need to have a self. You can't ignore the self. But the way to do it is really to expand yourself. Haftarecha kamocha. And you do that by focusing on the virtue of another individual. And losika losita are just simply exercises that strip away the negativity you might have towards that person, so that in fact you can love them. But what does it mean? Yeah.
I missed the point. So when it says Kedoshim Tihu, is that a destiny or is that a...
Two pshatim. There's two ideas. One idea is
two different ideas.
Two different ideas.
Okay.
One's idea of national destiny or individual destiny, and one is that it's a mitzvah to become holy, and that how do you do that by? And that's why all the mitzvahs, this is partial, many mitzvahs are bein al chavero. What does it mean?
Rabbi, we got the word kamocha. Kamocha, I have read in many places that what it says Hashem is saying, I have created them like you. They are the same. There is no difference between you and the rest of humanity. They are all equal. Don't think that this guy is, if it's black, then you can, make him into Eved or something. Or even if he's a Muslim. We are all created equal. If we can take that as equality of humanity, maybe hatred would not be there. Maybe it would be all love at that point. Because we are all created equal. And kamocha, that's all it means. They're all like you. We are all like one another. Maybe we look different. Maybe we speak differently.
Right.
Maybe we have different religions. Maybe, but when you see somebody in snow can die, you don't say, who are you? You try to help that person. That's what kamocha means.
I don't deny that kamocha means that the Torah is telling us that you have to see somebody else as you see yourself, for sure. It's not so clear from the word l'reacha kamocha. L'reacha normally is associated as a fellow Jew, but leave that alone for now.
Right.
But certainly the idea is certainly an idea of that's correct, that one should see, like you said, other people in equal light in terms of their virtues. That's somebody else. Yeah, I don't know if that's the condition of this pasuk, but I don't think that's a wrong idea. I think it's a right idea. But what does Ani Hashem mean? So why do we say Ani Hashem? So I don't know if I think I once told you this story. I'm not sure. After Kamocha, Ani Hashem. So there's a story about a fellow that was accused by the king of being a spy, whatever the case is, and so he's going to hang this person. Person insists that he's innocent, but the king says, no, I'm convinced, you're guilty, I'll hang you. So this guy says, listen, at least do me a favor, let me go home, you put my house in order, so I get by my family, put things in a row for them, and then you'll kill me. He said, what, do you think you're crazy? I'll let you go and expect you to come back? It's not going to happen. So he said, I'll tell you what, I have a very close friend, and I bet you if I ask him to stay here in my stead for 2 months, and if I don't come back, you're going to hang him, and he agrees, will you agree to that? He says, yeah, sure, because that's pretty good security. So let's see what your friend says. Your friend says, absolutely, I'll stay here, he's my best friend, I love him, and let him go home, and I'll be here waiting for him to come back. Well, fate would have it, the ship sails late, and the winds don't work in his favor, and the wagon breaks, and everything schleps out longer. And in 2 months, schleps out so that he's really playing it close. Instead of getting back a week early, a few days early, it's the day of, and he's still not there yet. King says, that's it, he's not here, sunrise, bring him out. So I bring him out to hang. Of course, it's a whole ceremony how you hang somebody, so it takes a couple hours. And he's ready on the stage to hang him. And all of a sudden, they see this guy riding in distance, he's coming. It's his friend. So the king says, wow, okay, shoot. And he says, okay. He says, here I am, king, you should hang me. I came back, I made it. So his friend says, no. He was supposed to be here in the morning. He didn't make it by morning. I love my friend. I know he's innocent. I know he'd do the same for me. I'm not letting him die innocent. I'd rather be hung. King said, but he was the one that, he said, no, but the deal was he has to come back on time. The other guy says, well, listen, on time, not on time, I'm supposed to be hung because you're the one you're accusing me of being a spy. Even though I'm not a spy, I want to be hung. And they're fighting back and forth. Each one's claiming that they should be hung. So the king says, this is ridiculous. I'm going to hang both of you. And then he realizes that they are very, very serious. He says, the king says, I'll tell you what, I thought it over. I'm willing to forgive you and assume that you're not a spy under one condition. What's the condition? I see your friendship is incredible. If you include me in your friendship, I'll let you go. So when you love your fellow love yourself, Hashem says, Ani Hashem, me too. Include me in your relationship. If you love your fellow love yourself, Ani Hashem. Hashem says, I want to be part of it too. And we know when there's achdus, when there's unity amongst the Jewish people, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, then I want to join. I want to be part of that as well. So after Kamecha, Ani Hashem.
That's why after every commandment, repeat Ani Hashem.
I don't each one for this one certainly. I get, Now the idea is that ultimately we realize that we become bigger people, we become greater people when we give. After Kamecha is an act of giving, obviously, and we have to realize that ultimately we gain by being givers, and that's really the mitzvah of becoming holy. There's a story about my wife's grandfather, Kapisha Rebbe, and I actually heard the story many years as a young boy. And I actually met the person who it happened to. So it was interesting. The details were slightly different, but pretty much the same story. Somebody came to Kapisha Rebbe, my wife's grandfather. In fact, I see he's quoted over. You see it over here? Rabbi Avram Yeshua Heschel Kapishas. See that at the bottom? See on page 661? See all these words here?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah? So that was my wife's grandfather. All right?
Yehoshua Heschel.
Yeah, Avram Yeshua Heschel, right. That's my wife's grandfather. So this is not what I'm quoting, but by the way, he practiced it. My father-in-law told me all the time. But he says over here, he said, the commandment is not to love saintly and righteous people. It's impossible not to love such people. God commands us to love even people whom it's hard to love. That's what he said. People it's hard to love, that's what you should love. And I remember my father would tell me, at the Friday night table, was every person that nobody would ever want to invite to their Friday night table because they would smell bad, they looked bad, that's what we had at his table. In fact, he told me once, there was one guy who used to come who was just an impossible fellow. He was negative, he was argumentative, and he was just really inappropriate. In fact, the Rebbe, my wife's grandfather, they would serve him in a bowl, a very beautiful bowl. He said, why you get the bowl, not me? And he would take the bowl himself. But the Rebbe, he didn't say anything. So finally, they realized he was just impossible. And the one week he was to come for Shabbos, Friday night, they steered him someplace else. They said, you can't come here, that's it. And they steered him, it was just too much. The Rebbe sat down, and he says, I don't know what his name was anymore. Shamshala. Where's Shamshala? The Rebbe Chab, something was going on, he said, you don't see it. I'm not making Kiddush until you find him. Because they knew they kind of sent him away. So they had to go scampering all over the place to find him and bring him back. That's how he lived, but he's told over here. But there's this famous story where somebody came to him to ask for money. And he noticed that the fellow wasn't wearing a hat. It was wintertime. He said, where's your hat? He says, I don't really have a hat. So the Rebbe said, you know what? It's cold outside, take my hat. He said, I'm not taking the rabbi's hat. Just please, please take my hat. He said, I'm not. And he kept begging him. Finally, he took the hat. He said, no, not that hat. That's my weekday hat. It's beat up. My Shabbos hat right here. It's a much nicer hat. He said, Rabbi, I'm not taking your nicer hat. Forget about it. And he said, I'm begging you, please take it. He said, no. Finally, the Rebbe said to him, listen, whichever hat you take, that's the one that I'll be wearing in the Garden of Eden. You understand? Which I can take. So the Rebbe was saying, listen, you're doing me a favor. You know, it's my pleasure. If I can help you out, right? I'm gaining from that experience. That's what I'll be wearing in the Garden of Eden. In fact, another beautiful story I'll tell you about is people used to call him up all the time to have jobs or help. So he said Tehillim all the time. In fact, he was, it was his companion wherever he went. And he davened for people all the time. In fact, he's bemoaned sometimes. People came to him. There was a big tragedy. It was something terrible. Somebody sick. He would daven. And then somebody else came to me. He saw him 6 months later. He said, how's everything? He goes, oh, thank God. Since I went to you, everything's fine. I got my job back. I got my health back. He said, but why don't you tell me? I've been fasting every Monday and Thursday for the past 6 months for you. That's what he was. That's the kind of person he was. He was a holy Jew. But he was holy because he was a tremendous giver. So anyway, somebody once called him up and said he needed a job. And he was crying. It was hard to get a job. So Rebbe said to him, but he also picked the phone and he made phone calls to every person that he knew to see if he can get him a job. That's what he did. He picked the phone. Finally he got somebody to give him a job. Anyway, there's a knock on this person's door. It's about 10 o'clock at night. He opens the door, and it's the Rebbe. And the Rebbe says, well, the person says, what are you doing here? He said, I wanted to tell you that you got a job. So he's so happy. But then he said, but Rebbe, you didn't have to walk 3 blocks. It was on the east side at the time. They lived on the east side. You had to walk 3 blocks and then climb 4 flights of stairs to tell me. You could have called me on the phone. You could tell me next morning I'm coming to davening. Why'd you come? I felt terrible. He said, what? And deprive myself of the pleasure that when I see a Jew smile, that he sees Hashem helped him, and I can get the pleasure to see how a Jew smiles. How can you take that away from me? That's the kind of person he was. That's holiness. That's all. When you're not living for yourself, that's holiness. And that's what he was. That's Kedoshim to you. When you're not living for yourself. All right? Let's just conclude. So that's Kedoshim to you, and Yachol Kamoini. There's one last thing I'll mention to you, and that is, 2 things. It says, right the pasuk before that, it says, it says you shouldn't hate your brother in your heart. You should give him rebuke, and don't bear the sin because of him. All right? So what does that mean? It means you should rebuke him, otherwise you'll bear the sin, because if he does something wrong, and you don't tell him, it's on you a little bit. Now, we live in a country where everything is about, I'm minding my own business. Mind my own business. That we call that a virtue already. Terry says, no. You don't mind your business. You care about somebody else. And hochet means you have to give rebuke. But obviously it has to be done in a smart way. Because most people, if I asked you, is it easier for you to give rebuke or receive rebuke? What would you say?
But they're both very equally difficult.
Equally? I don't. It doesn't have to be equally. Is it easier to give or get? What do you think? Easier to give? Easier to give? What do you think?
Yes.
Easier to get?
It's harder to get than it's easier to give.
It's easier to give?
Easier
What do you
to give,
say?
yeah.
What do you say?
Like I said, I think they're
Okay.
both very difficult.
Easier to give.
Easier to give. What do you think?
It's best to get.
It's best to get. Good. Yeah.
Easier to give.
Yeah.
To give.
Okay. So there is no right answer. It's like sometimes who are you to tell me, and sometimes who am I to tell you, right? So they're both hard, obviously, and especially when we're very fragile
But
today.
when you get it, you can reconstruct yourself.
Of course,
When
of course.
When you give it, you can get people away from it.
Well, okay, we'll talk about
You
that.
have to be extremely careful with giving that kind of rebuke.
Absolutely. So certainly, receiving rebuke should be viewed as an opportunity to learn about yourself and an opportunity to improve. It's okay to know you made a mistake if you get a chance to prove it. It's wonderful. David Melech sang a mizmar, a tehillim, when he was rebuked for Bathsheba, because now I can learn about myself and improve myself. So it's, most people don't think that way, but really it's an opportunity to grow. But it's also hard to give because most people don't feel that way, and they're very fragile, and they're very sensitive, and you even just look at them funny, and they're already going to therapy for 2 years, right? Because that's just the way people are.
We're talking about this shul,
Any place, we're very, very fragile, very fragile. So you have to know how to give rebuke, and that's why the Haftar Chamech comes right afterwards, which is you can only give rebuke if the person on the receiving end of the criticism feels that you're doing it because you love him. If they don't feel you're doing it because you love him, not only shouldn't you, you're not allowed to, because as you said, it's going to be counterproductive. They'll get angrier, it'll be making things even worse. So it can only be done if you're able to convey, I'm saying this to you because I really love you. But if that doesn't come over in the rebuke, you're not allowed to give criticism. So it's not a simple thing. It's got to be done out of love, and people have to see that. If they don't see it or feel it, it's not going to work. It's simply not going to work. And not only not work, it's going to be counterproductive. So you have to be also clever, because most people are not receptive to criticism. I don't know if everyone's told you a story about there was a rabbi that came to his attention that somebody in his town, a woman that was met very hard times, and the bank was going to foreclose on her home. So they wanted to raise money to help her stay in her house. Anyway, they were a little bit short, and they were beside themselves. They couldn't come up with the money. Someone suggested the edge of town was a very wealthy fellow, and he could certainly, as a man of means, he could help. So he said, Rebbe said, look, we'll have to go, we'll travel, we'll go. And someone said, no, Rebbe, you're wasting your time. The guy is a miser, he doesn't give a penny to anybody. It's going to be dishonorable to you, it's a waste of your time, it's going to be disrespectful. Please don't go. I'm telling you, we've tried 100 times. The Rebbe said, I have no choice. This woman's going to get evicted, we must try. So he goes to her home and knocks on the door. The fellow answers, he goes, Rabbi, the rabbi of town, what an honor, please come in. Sits down at the dining room table, beautiful table. Says, can I offer you something to eat? No. Go for something to drink? No. Okay. Well, what do you want to discuss? Nothing. Huh? Nothing. Strange. Figure wait for me, maybe he didn't understand it, maybe the rebel, freshen up a little bit. 5 minutes later, something to drink, something to eat. Can I offer you nothing? Is there anything you want to talk about? I said, no, not really. 10 minutes goes by, 15 minutes goes by. This is the most bizarre thing in the world. So he looks at the gabbai, the attendant, one who traveled the Rebbe, and he says, what's going on? And the gabbai goes, I don't know. This is strange to me also. This goes on for half an hour. Total silence. Keeps asking once in a while, prods him. Nothing. Finally, after half an hour, Rebbe looks at the watch and goes, time to go. What? Time to go. He gets up, starts heading to the door. He says, Rabbi, please tell me what just went on over here. He says, nothing. Rabbi, please tell me. He says, I can't tell you. You can't tell me. What can't you tell me? I can't tell you. Why can't you tell me? Well, the Rebbe says, I'll tell you what. I'm not supposed to tell you something. The law is you're not supposed to tell somebody something that they're not going to listen to anyway. So I can't tell you. So obviously, he said, what am I not going to listen to? He says, I can't tell you. He says, no, Rabbi, I promise I'm going to listen. He said, okay, now I can tell you. They sat down, and he told him about this woman. And at that point, he was willing to give. The rabbi was very clever. He got him to acknowledge the fact that you're not going to listen to me. And he got him to say, are you willing to listen? Are you willing to hear? And so criticism sometimes involves that before you launch at that person, get the person to listen. Are you willing to hear what I have to say? I really care about you, and I want to help you. Are you willing to listen to what I have to say? But if they say no, then stop right there. But this rabbi was clever enough to create the mood and the mode where that person's mentality was now receptive to receiving criticism. So it's a great skill. And finally it says, Velo sisa olav chet, which means you should not bear a sin. I heard it once from my Rebbe many years ago. I think it was quoted from the Sfas Emes. I think so. Velo sisa olav chet also can mean something. Sisa means to carry or to raise. And he'd say, the Sfas Emes was like, don't raise the sin. What does that mean? When you give a rebuke to a person, don't say, how could you do this terrible thing? But rather, how can you do this terrible thing? Raise the person. say you're such a special person. Why would you do something that's beneath who you are? So the Torah says, don't, lo sisal chet can be understood, don't raise a sin, but rather raise the person. Elevate the person, and in the process say, you're too good to be able to want to do these kind of things. So don't bring him down by saying, how can you do this terrible thing? That's not productive. But raise the person. Lo sisal chet, raise the person, not the sin.
Treat them the way you want them to
Yes.
become.
Yes, exactly.
And the other thing that you mentioned about the sort of the reverse psychology that you made,
Right.
the rabbi wound up making the rich man beg him to tell him
Right.
what he wanted.
Right.
There's a technique in sales called going for the no.
It's kind of going for the no means when you kind of what's the word when you say, oh, you're not ready for this.
Yeah, I said, this isn't for you.
This isn't for you, right.
We told you about but my sense is it's not for you. You won't
Right.
you won't get the
Right.
benefit.
Right.
And by then you guys, this cup is so free. He doesn't know anymore what he wants to
But
do.
it's more than that. It's the psychology is when you tell the guy no, it's not for you. That's when you all of a sudden you want it because you always want what you can't have.
Exactly.
Sure.
It's reverse psychology,
Yeah,
and it's very effective.
Right. Yeah.
Rabbi, for Shifcha Harufah, that's the next thing.
Yeah.
What happens if that woman was not slated to be married to somebody else? Shifcha Harufah, the way you describe it here, if it is a woman was supposed to marry a man and somebody else, has relation with her, then he has to take Shifcha Harufah, Asham.
Just take it for herself. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So if she was not scheduled to be married to somebody else, then she doesn't have to take any Asham Shifcha Harufah.
About this.
662.
Yeah. Wait, what are you asking me? What?
Is on 19,
Oh,
20.
yeah. Right. Oh, he's saying if she wasn't, then
Yeah,
right,
if she wasn't,
right, then you don't have to. Right.
So wouldn't that?
It's not definitely ish. Yeah, it's a possible. It says here. Why should it be different?
Exactly.
Why should it be different?
No, I mean, this is the reason we read it every morning, different korbanot. One of them is Asham Talush, Metzorah, Asham Shifcha Harufah. This is exactly talking about the thing right here.
Why
It's
should
a
it be?
guilt offering.
Right. The question is why. I have to think about it.
Is this because of the feel guilty toward the man or the woman? The man that he took his wife away, or the woman that he was violated? So I mean, what is this addressing?
What is it addressing?
In other words, when this guy takes a Asham Shifcha Harufah, he's making an atonement toward the
Person, right?
which person? The woman or the man that he took his
It's
wife?
the woman. I mean,
woman.
right? Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The woman.
All right, but I'll look it up. I have to see what this. I don't. I have to really think it through.
There's one other question, Rabbi. The good people born that way, or are they made that way? Because my personal feeling is either you have it or you don't. And they've done studies in graduate schools of trying to teach ethics to people. You can't teach ethics to a person who's not ethical. It can't be done.
Right, it's kind of having a monkey perform certain acts of opening a door. You can teach a monkey to open a door if somebody wants a room. Doesn't make the monkey
You're
ethical.
born a certain way. You have a certain, strain of thinking, and
There's
chances
this
are
famous story with Bertrand Russell. You heard of Bertrand Russell?
Yeah.
Bertrand Russell was a famous mathematician.
Right.
And also taught ethics. And they actually discovered one time that he was messing around with some of his female students in the class. So they said to him, "Haytachem, Bertrand Russell, you're the big ethicist. How can you do this thing?" So he said, "Listen, I'm also a math professor. Doesn't make me a triangle." That's what he said. You're right.
Smart. Thank you, Rabbi.